Hello, I'm Rob Walker.
And I'm Emily Eccles.
And this is the Civil Service Pensions Podcast.
We work for civil service pensions. We're communicators and we're passionate about making the complicated seem straightforward.
But we don't know everything there is to know about pensions.
We're back for a second season to learn alongside you. In every episode, we go back to basics to help you get to grips with your civil service pension and make more informed choices about your financial future.
Every week, we'll be chatting to expert guests and members of the scheme to find out how you can get the most out of your pension and why it's one of the best in the UK public sector. In today's Minisode, we're talking about pension fraud. Can someone really steal a pension? They usually are largest and most valuable financial asset at any one time, which makes them prime targets for fraudsters. But what is pension fraud and how does it even happen?
That's a good question. So with us today to explain all of that is Liz Scully, Risk and Control Director, and she's going to walk us through how pension fraud happens, what we're doing to combat it, and how members can protect themselves.
Liz, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys. Great to be here.
So let's start with the basics, Liz. What is pension fraud?
Well, pension fraud is exactly what it says on the tin. It's where scammers are trying to target pension scheme members to get hold of their hard-earned money, basically. Your pension is one of the biggest assets you probably have. Your house, obviously, is a big asset if you own your own home. But it's in the range of that. That's how important it is for you. When you think about it, your pension is something that you are depending on in retirement as your source of income. Potentially for 40 years, the same amount of time you've already been working, if you're lucky, yeah. So if you think about it, the value of that is huge. So for a scammer, that's a great thing to target, isn't it?
I suppose value-wise, it's valuable to you because obviously you're going to live off of it.
Absolutely, it's your income.
But in terms of monetary value, I guess it's equivalent, if not perhaps in some cases worth more than your house.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I guess it's one of those things that, unlike a house which you're in, it's something that you can't see.
You can't see, so sometimes you don't realise the value of it because you can't see it. The civil service scheme is a really great scheme and it gives you an excellent benefit because it's defined benefit. So you get that income, you're sure of what you're getting in retirement every month, every year. If you had to put a monetary cash value on that, you're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
So does it happen? Does pension fraud happen? Is it,
it does. Absolutely, it happens. I mean, in the UK, over the last 5 years, roughly about the last 5 years, over £31 million has been subject to pension fraud.
That's
Scammers have got
industry.
£31 million across the pensions industry from members. People are living off scamming people out of their pension, that they then have no pension or potentially a much reduced pension depending on whether they've got one or more than one, and their life has changed then for when they retire.
Yeah. 31 million, wow, that really gives you an idea of the scale of what we're talking about.
It's huge, isn't it?
Absolutely.
People don't realise that. Anyone can be a target. Doesn't matter how financially savvy you think you are. If you look at any of the programmes that you see on the TV, for instance, BBC have that scam interceptors or something, and that gives you an idea of the lengths people go to. And you're not stupid if you get scammed. Yeah. People are very smart, but scammers are also very smart. And this is their business. This is what they do for a living. You know, so yes, they can be very sophisticated. They can try and get you to transfer your pension. So your civil service pension that's really valuable, they can try and get you to transfer that out. Various reasons they'll give you why it would be really good for you to transfer it out into something that basically either doesn't exist or is investing in something that actually you're not going to see any returns over, but they're going to get huge chunks of money out of. High-risk investments like overseas property and hotels, renewable energy, parking, storage units, all sorts of things actually they could be investing in. But, you know, also it just gets stolen outright. You know, it's their income.
Wow.
And they are very sophisticated.
Wow, that's pretty terrifying. So how would somebody know that they were being scammed out of their pension?
I suppose one of the most common things that people get is cold calling. You know, either contact through social media, let's say, contact through email, phone calls. Now, that's illegal. That is illegal. There is a law against that.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, so if somebody does contact you, you can practically guarantee that that person is a scammer.
Yeah.
Because they're already breaking the law by making that call to you. And you should contact the Information Commissioner's Office, because actually they will follow up on that.
Okay, that's good. So what about people who are making promises about, if you get a call from somebody that says, I can get you a better return on your pension,
Yeah.
is that a red flag?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very common. Free pension reviews is another one. Doesn't that sound, somebody's offering me a free pension review.
Well, yeah, sounds legit.
Yeah, they're going to look at my pension, and I may have another pension from somewhere else. Maybe they'll look at all of the things and tell me, is there a better way of investing my money? No. There isn't.
I suppose, especially given that we're talking about the civil service pension scheme here, there isn't probably anywhere better for it to be than in the scheme.
It's an excellent scheme to be in, and it gives you a guaranteed benefit in retirement, a guaranteed income. You invest money in funds like in a DC pot. You have no guarantee there. You just have a value of money that you might invest and hope for some good returns. The civil service scheme is giving you a defined benefit and a defined income. So offering free pension reviews, pension liberation, loopholes, how they can get you an advance on your savings, all of those things are a big red flag for a pension scam. And also saying they'll get you access to it before 55. Well, yes, they can. And the taxman will take a huge chunk of it, but they don't tell you that. And then they'll take the other chunk probably. So you'd be left with nothing.
Yeah, wow.
And high-pressure tactics as well. These people are very slick and very practiced at what they do. They may even say, you might think this is a scam, but it's not, because we've got your details from wherever, and they'll come up with some story that sounds really plausible, but it's only on offer today, and there's always that pressure
pushing you to do it,
to make a decision and make a decision quickly, and they'll say whatever they need to try and get your pension off you, basically. The civil service scheme has rules around what type of schemes you can transfer into. So you couldn't just transfer out into a DC scheme with investments. You may transfer out into a scheme that looks like it's a legitimate scheme and you're being scammed. But there are things you can do to make sure that the scheme that you are transferring to is legitimate.
Anyone who's wondering what DC and defined benefit is, our first ever episode was all about Pensions 101, and we go into the difference between those two types of scheme in quite a lot of detail. So anyone who wants to know what that means, go and listen to that episode.
One of the aspects of trying to convince somebody to transfer their pension into another scheme is the high returns that you're going to get, etc. But often, if you're making that transfer potentially well before you may be due to retire. And for the first maybe few months, year, whatever, they might be sending you some updates of how well your funds are doing. But actually in the long term, you come to retire, maybe even within a few years, you hear nothing. That scheme doesn't exist, actually.
So in that instance, you've had your pension stolen, but you've not realised till years later.
Till years later. Yeah.
That just feels terrifying.
Which is really scary. And, for people that have been conned into that transfer, they're unaware of that for years, and they believe that they've got this fund that's building up and is going to give them a great return, and they're going to retire with a really good income, and actually they have nothing.
Jeepers. My key takeaway from that is anyone who contacts you and asks you to move your pension, no matter what they say, no matter what pressure they put you under, no matter what great things they appear to be offering you, just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
And I guess unless you're speaking to an independent financial advisor,
exactly,
just don't take advice from anybody.
Don't take advice from anybody. And the civil service scheme has got lots of information on the website. You can contact us. You can also go on the Financial Services Register and look at who the legitimate providers of financial advice are.
So if you get told that you're speaking to somebody from a particular company, you can look that company up.
You can look them
and
up.
check if they're legit. That's good.
And if that
advice.
person says to you, we've just changed our names, or we're part of this group or whatever, hang up. Do your own homework. And then you call them at the number that's registered on the Financial Services Register. For me, I kind of think about it like it's one of your biggest assets. As you said, Rob, probably even more valuable than your own house. You wouldn't invite a stranger into your house and let them look around and, poke in all the corners and all of that. You wouldn't invite somebody in to do that. So why would you do that with your pension?
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Really good way to think about it.
It will include a link to Financial Services Register in the show description.
So we've talked about the scale of the problem of pension fraud and, what these scammers get away with. What role does the scheme play in identifying and preventing fraud?
So we work really hard to tackle and prevent fraud from happening. And we've got a great track record as well of doing so. Staff are trained really well. There's lots of awareness training that happens, and we also have a lot of parameters in place that will trigger warnings or red flags. All transfer requests go through a transfer team. There's lots of controls in place and lots of pointers to any red flags. The scheme has really good rules around transfers as well. But that doesn't mean to say that it isn't possible for somebody to try and commit fraud. I mean, it certainly is. So we always need to be on guard for that and be aware. So past year or two, we've had about 9 suspected fraud cases. And we see tactics like impersonation. So a fraudster could have got access to your personal details, your email, your personal information, your personal data, and they could contact us posing as you. We've also seen a particular incident of somebody actually phoning up and using voice-changing technology to pretend to be an elderly lady in her late 90s. When we started investigating that fraud, when we listened back to all the calls, we actually heard the change in that voice changer, which is very hard to pick up when you're just on a call. Yeah. Only when you're reviewing them, really, literally second by second, you could hear it as a man's voice.
That's terrifying.
Isn't it? So scammers are always looking for new ways to convince someone that they're legitimate.
So your role is not just about having procedures and policies in place, it's about staying ahead of what's going on with the scammers and what they're trying to do.
Absolutely. And, we have a really good procedures, as I said, and controls in place. We have a fraud forum, so we share information and make sure that we're up to speed on any trends, etc. So it's something you constantly have to be looking at and renewing your knowledge and awareness.
So for anyone listening to this and thinking, crikey, I'm terrified that I'm going to get someone steal my pension.
It sounds like that, doesn't it?
What kind of simple tips would you give to any members who are listening to avoid pension scams?
So 4 simple steps, I suppose, and they are really quite simple, and they're recommended by the Financial Conduct Authority and the Pensions Regulator. And the first one being reject unexpected offers. Like we've just said, that cold calling, that person that's trying to convince you that you have never heard of before and they've just contacted you out of the blue, it's illegal. End the call and contact the Information Commissioner's office. Don't be talked into transferring or even letting them do a free pension review. And also bear in mind that somebody could actually say to you, oh, I've got this really great deal, you should look at it, because they also could be subject to a scammer, but they don't know it. Because these people are very, very clever. So check everything yourself. Don't take anything for granted. And then, I suppose, number 2, check who you're dealing with. Check the Financial Services Register, as we've mentioned already, because that will tell you if they're legitimate. And there's also a warning list as well, which will give you the names of people that have already been brought to the attention of the Financial Conduct Authority.
So that's useful.
Check that out too. And don't do anything if you're not absolutely 100% sure of it. And don't be pressured. That's the other thing. If somebody's trying to rush you or press you into something, then you can guarantee they're scamming you. They're trying to get you to make a decision quickly, because anybody who is professional and registered and fully legitimate will never, ever try and put you under pressure and rush you.
That's such a good point.
And I suppose pressure is not just people going, come on, you need a decision now. Pressure might be inferred by saying, look, this deal's going to end at midnight tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's an expiry date. It's just, it's just for the next 24 hours, all of those things. Yeah, it's not somebody saying, do it now, do it now.
Anyone who makes you feel like you've got to make an urgent decision.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And then if you want to transfer your pension, people do. That's perfectly legitimate, but get impartial information and get some advice before you do that from a legitimate person on the register. Get yourself a financial advisor and make sure that you make the best decision based on that information. Don't take advice from somebody that you haven't gone looking for the advice from. The Money Helper website provides free, independent and impartial information. And also, as I've mentioned already, the Financial Services Register, the FCA, etc. All of those, there is lots of information out there to guide you to the right place to go.
And we'll make sure we share links to all of those in the description for this show as well.
And then finally, spread the news. Tell people, share information about pension scams. The scammers are looking at pensions as a really valuable source of income for themselves, because every year there's new ways of trying to scam people out of their benefits, their money. And scammers are always looking for new ways. Yes, it's a bit harder to get money out of the civil service scheme, to get you to transfer your money out of that. But nevertheless, people trying to impersonate you, people trying to access your money, your benefits, they're out there. So just be on your guard and don't do anything without getting the proper advice.
Wow, lots of really useful and quite powerful information and messages for members there. Liz, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been great having you with us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Liz. As always, you can find out more about pension fraud on the scheme website. That's civilservicepensionscheme.org.uk.
Make sure you follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Plus, you can leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. This episode was recorded in July 2023, and everything that we talked about today is accurate at the time of recording.
Thanks for listening.